Some men use defiance as a shield. Others mistake it for power. In September 1944, a German commander looked at the most aggressive American general of the war and said, "You'll have to kill me to take this place." What followed was not a battle of wills, but a demonstration of what happens when words are taken literally in war. Eastern France, late summer of 1944. The Allied advance had broken out of Normandy and was now surging eastward with relentless momentum. German forces were retreating, regrouping, collapsing, and occasionally digging in wherever terrain or old fortifications offered a chance to slow the Americans down. One such position sat astride a vital road junction, an old stone fortress built centuries earlier, designed for wars of muskets and cannon, now pressed into service against tanks, artillery, and aircraft. The fortress rose above the surrounding countryside, its thick walls scarred by time but still formidable. Narrow approaches funneled attackers into kill zones. Interlocking machine gun positions covered every road and path. Beneath the stone, underground chambers offered protection from bombardment. A well inside ensured water. From a purely defensive standpoint, it was strong enough that a careless assault could bleed an attacking force white. Inside were roughly 1,500 German troops. They were not an elite formation. They were a mixture. Infantry units battered by retreat, artillery crews pulled back from broken lines, officers from different commands thrown together by circumstance rather than planning. What they shared was isolation. American forces had already encircled the area. No relief was coming. Their commander was a German major who believed deeply in the language of honor. He had sworn an oath never to surrender to the Americans. To him, surrender meant disgrace. Resistance, even if futile, meant dignity. Outside the fortress stood General George S. Patton. Patton's Third Army was moving fast, so fast that supply lines strained to keep up. Speed was his obsession. Every delay mattered. And this fortress mattered because it sat on a key junction. Leaving it in German hands meant supply convoys would be forced onto longer, more dangerous routes. Strategically, it could not be ignored. Patton had a reputation, but it was often misunderstood. He was aggressive, yes, ruthless in combat, certainly, but he was not wasteful. He hated unnecessary delays and unnecessary casualties even more than he hated the enemy. His preferred method was simple: offer surrender first, not out of sentimentality, but efficiency. A surrendered enemy costs nothing in time or blood. So Patton did what he always did. An American officer approached the fortress under a white flag. His message was clear, professional, and entirely standard. Surrender now. Avoid pointless bloodshed. Your men will be treated according to the Geneva Convention and held as prisoners of war for the duration. It was an offer of survival. The German major's response was theatrical, absolute, and deeply personal. He rejected the offer outright. He spoke of duty, of honor, of his oath, and then he delivered the line he likely believed would define him. If General Patton wanted the fortress, he would have to kill him to get it. It was meant to sound heroic. When the messenger returned and delivered the response, Patton did not explode in anger. He did not scoff. He did not counter with harsher terms. According to those present, his reaction was chilling in its calm. "The major says we must kill him." Very well. To Patton, this was not an insult. It was a statement of preference. And Patton believed in granting enemies exactly what they asked for. Nothing more, nothing less. Orders followed immediately. First, total encirclement. Not just roadblocks, but a seal. No movement in or out. Any external water supply was cut off if possible. The fortress might have stone walls, but it still depended on logistics. Second, artillery. Every heavy gun within range was assigned targets. This would not be a random bombardment. Each battery registered precise firing solutions against specific sections of the wall, known defensive positions, and likely command areas. Thick stone could stop rifle fire. It could not stop repeated hits from heavy shells. Third, air power. Not indiscriminate bombing, but precision strikes. Aircraft were tasked with hitting key structures, command posts, artillery emplacements, and ammunition stores. Finally, psychological pressure. Loudspeakers were brought forward. The Germans inside would be told exactly what was going to happen and when. Not as a threat, but as a schedule. At this hour, artillery. Then, airstrikes. Then, the ground assault. They would have time to think about it. Patton made one more thing clear to his own officers. This was not to be a cautious operation. The enemy had refused to surrender. They would receive overwhelming force, applied so decisively that the fighting would end quickly. Hours, not days. Responsibility, in Patton's mind, now rested entirely on the man inside the fortress. The attack began at dawn, not out of tradition, but design. Patton wanted the Germans to spend the entire night knowing what was coming, listening to the loudspeakers, imagining the shells, questioning their commander's choice. When the sun rose, the guns opened up exactly on time. American artillery did not blanket the fortress at random. It focused. Repeated strikes pounded the same sections of wall until the stone cracked and collapsed. Breaches appeared. Defensive positions vanished under direct hits. German artillery attempted to respond and immediately paid the price. Counter-battery fire zeroed in within minutes. Firing back became an invitation to die. After hours of shelling, the aircraft arrived. Fighter bombers screamed in low, releasing bombs onto precisely identified targets. The command post was struck repeatedly. Ammunition stores exploded, sending shock waves through the fortress. The main gate was torn apart. All the while, the loudspeakers continued. Calm voices, speaking German, explaining what was happening, announcing what would come next, offering one last chance to surrender and live. And slowly, something began to break. Small groups of German soldiers emerged from damaged sections of the wall, hands raised. At first, just a few. Then, more. They chose life over rhetoric. The major tried to stop it. He ordered deserters shot. Some were, but this only accelerated the collapse. The soldiers understood the truth. They were trapped between American firepower and a commander willing to sacrifice them for an idea. By mid-morning, the fortress was no longer a fortress. It was a shattered ruin. That was when the American infantry moved in. They did not attack from one direction. They came through every breach at once. Tanks rolled up to point-blank range, firing directly into openings. Engineers used explosives to collapse remaining strongpoints. Flamethrowers cleared bunkers that still resisted. Yet the fighting was strangely methodical. Patton's preparation had stripped the defense of cohesion. There was no coordinated resistance, only isolated pockets that fought briefly, then surrendered. The loudspeakers moved forward with the troops, repeating the same message. Lay down your weapons, and you will live. The German major was found in the remains of his command bunker. He had barricaded himself with a handful of loyal soldiers. When American troops broke in, he raised his pistol. An American sergeant shot him. There was no speech, no ceremony, just the immediate neutralization of a threat. The major had said Patton would have to kill him. Patton had obliged. The remaining soldiers in the bunker surrendered instantly. Their loyalty had extended only as far as their commander's life. From the first shell to the final surrender, the entire operation had taken less than 12 hours. American casualties were minimal, wounded but none killed. German losses were severe. The major was dead. Roughly 200 soldiers had been killed, mostly in the bombardment. Hundreds more were wounded. The rest, around 1,000, became prisoners of war. Afterward, intelligence officers examined the fortress. What they found told a deeper story. Notes from junior officers questioning the decision to resist. Evidence of executions carried out against men who tried to surrender. Signs that morale had been failing long before the first shell fell. The major had believed defiance would inspire. Instead, it had trapped his men in a position that could not be held. Patton toured the ruins the next day. He did not celebrate. He did not gloat. To him, the outcome was simply the logical result of a choice made. He also made a point of visiting wounded German prisoners. He ensured they received medical treatment alongside American wounded. His message to his own troops was clear. Ruthlessness would end when the resistance ended. Be merciless in battle. Be professional in victory. Never confuse the two. Word of the fortress spread quickly. Among American troops, it reinforced what they already knew. Patton always offered surrender first. If the enemy refused, the consequences were swift and overwhelming, but never arbitrary. The German major had been given every chance to live. His death was not an accident. It was the outcome he had chosen. Among German forces, the lesson was harsher. This was not just another lost position. It was a demonstration of predictability. Patton did not bluff. His threats were not negotiating tactics. They were statements of fact. Some German officers later admitted they surrendered specifically because they had heard the story. They understood that defiance did not delay Patton, it only intensified him. Looking back, the arithmetic is brutal. The fortress delayed the American advance by less than a day. If the major had surrendered immediately, 1,500 men would have lived. Instead, hundreds died or were maimed, and the rest went into captivity anyway. Heroic last stands make compelling myths. However, when faced with overwhelming force, they do not alter the outcomes. They only increase casualties. There is a lesson here that extends beyond war. When someone declares, "You'll have to kill me," they assume their opponent will hesitate. Some opponents do not. Some take words at face value. Patton was one of them. The German major is largely forgotten. His fortress is just another ruin, but the principle endures. With Patton, defiance was not deterrence, it was permission. And permission, once given, was acted upon with ruthless efficiency.